All right, today we're going to dive into a cybersecurity idea that is completely different. It's not about stopping threats, it's about making it impossible for them to even exist. This is the art of substrate, and its core idea is something called the doctrine of manifest integrity.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the new law of reality that this whole thing is built on. Then, we'll see how they forge a single truthful machine. After that, how those machines form a collective consciousness. From there, how that collective actually governs the machine at its deepest level. And finally, we'll see the whole system in its final form, an engine that literally decides what gets to be real.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around what the art of substrate is doing, we have to talk about the old way of thinking. You know, for decades, cybersecurity has just been about building bigger walls and then hoping we can catch anyone who finds a way to climb over them.
And this slide just nails the difference. On the left, that's classical security. It's basically a shield that you hope is strong enough. It's a game of catch the thief after they're already inside your house. But look at the right. The artist substrate isn't a shield. It's the foundation of the house itself. It doesn't catch the thief. It changes the laws of reality so the thief can't even exist in the first place.
And this gets us to the absolute core doctrine, manifest integrity. Get this is not just another security app. It's a fundamental property where the very right for something to act is a physical state baked into the hardware. If a process breaks the rules, the machine doesn't just block it. No, it mathematically refuses to create the reality in which that process could even run. So how in the world do you build that? Well, it all starts with forging a single machine that is verifiably, mathematically truthful, and that bedrock gets laid down in the first two phases. Phase 1 is all about anchoring the system in physical reality. They call it the alchemical root. Now, this isn't about some password you can steal. It's about the machine proving it was born lawfully from the very beginning. It literally takes physical measurements from the silicon, from the hardware itself, and turns them into a cryptographic proof of its own identity.
And that proof is protected by two guardians. First, you have the tree of truth. Think of this as verifying the machine's state in space, using those hardware values. Then you have the tree of order, which verifies time, making sure everything happens in the exact right sequence. You put those two together, and you get the world manifold, which is a single, unified, provable context for reality.
Phase 2, the formation covenant, is absolutely critical. It closes this massive security hole that's always existed, that little dark zone of time between when the hardware boots up and when your OS security actually starts running. This covenant creates a perfect mathematical handoff, making sure that the truth that was established in Phase 1 is never, ever lost. So why is this such a huge deal? Because the machine now basically has a conscience. It's loyal to its own constitution, not to the administrator, not to anyone. If a command violates its own proven lawful origin story, it just ignores it. It is physically incapable of betraying its own birth.
So we've got one truthful machine. That's incredible. But how do you make that scale? How do you get that integrity across an entire network? Well, this brings us to what's called the awakening chorus, where all these individual nodes come together to form a kind of collective consciousness.
So in Phase 3, trust becomes a group activity. A single node's legitimacy isn't just its own business anymore. If it wants to have any power, it has to be in perfect harmony with its peers. You can see it right there. If one node, node C, goes rogue, its dissonance, its bad vibe is immediately detected, and the rest of the network just vetoes it into silence. One bad apple cannot spoil the bunch.
And this slide is just brilliant. It shows exactly how that harmony is measured. Just look at the two waves. That top one is the smooth, stable rhythm of normal, healthy operations. But the bottom one, that's the chaotic, jagged discord of a scripted attack. The system doesn't even need to know what the attack is. It just hears that the rhythm of the network is broken, and it immediately clamps down. Phase 4 takes this idea of harmony and makes it rock solid with a cryptographic quorum. So instead of just sensing a good rhythm, the system now demands mathematical proof. Any high-risk action now needs a 67% supermajority vote from the other nodes to pass. It's basically a cryptographically enforced democracy. Okay, so the group can agree on what's right and what's wrong. But so what? How does that agreement actually do anything inside the machine? This is the final piece of the puzzle, where this abstract law becomes cold, hard, machine-level reality. And that's where Phase V, the kernel bridge, comes in. That consensus from the network doesn't just float around as an idea. This bridge pipes that collective decision directly into the heart of the operating system, the kernel. The
The whole idea here is that just because you intend to do something doesn't mean you get to. The chorus of nodes now has the final say on whether a process is even allowed to be born.
This is what enforces the ultimate rule: no life without law. A malicious process tries to run, but it's not just blocked. Because of this perfect fusion of hardware truth, process state, and network agreement, the machine mathematically refuses to create the biological existence for that process. There is literally, as the source material says, no ground to walk on.
So now that we've built all these layers from the hardware root to the network chorus all the way to the kernel bridge, we can finally step back and look at the whole thing. And this is where it stops being just a security system and becomes something much, much bigger, a machine that actively decides what is allowed to be real.
This final transformation comes from what's called the Ainulindale update, and it's exactly what it sounds like. The system is no longer just watching or validating. It has become, in the truest sense of the words, a reality admission engine. Now, the heart of this update is a concept called the secret fire. And what this means is that truth has an expiration date. In fact, it expires instantly. A fact can't be something that was true 5 minutes ago and replayed. To be considered valid, reality has to prove itself continuously, right now, under a constant cryptographic challenge. Any old, stale truth is thrown out, which just completely kills things like replay attacks. And this creates this incredible new assembly line for reality itself. Just follow the flow. Any event is first captured. It's immediately challenged by that secret fire to prove it's live. Only then does it go before a council of witnesses for interpretation before it's finally put together, permitted, enforced, and then locked into the system's memory. And that council is the Ainur choir. Think of it like a jury, where each member is an independent expert asking one fundamental question. Varda asks, is it true? Vere asks, did this happen in the right order? Manwë asks, are you alive right now? And then you have these amazing ones like Mandos, who asks, what's supposed to be here that isn't? And Ulmo, who looks for what's hidden. An attacker can't just trick one of them, they have to trick all of them, all at the same time.
And the results? Well, they speak for themselves. They ran this thing through a brutal series of tests called the Morgoth Mega Gauntlet. And look, classical single-layer defenses. They failed every time. Semantic injection, rhythm spoofing, they all broke through. But the artist substrate, because it's verifying all those dimensions of reality at once, passed every single trial.
So to wrap this all up, what we have here is a system where reality itself is put on trial. It's only allowed to exist if multiple independent witnesses all agree that it's true, that it's happening right now under direct challenge and with real consequences for lying. And that really leaves us with a pretty profound final thought. What does it mean when our machines stop being just tools that execute our commands and start becoming judges of reality itself?